Welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D, your direct line to Randy Dowdy and David Hula, here to help fellow farmers unlock the potential in their fields. Are you looking to implement best practices that maximize ROI? You've come to the right place. Real value, real yield, real ROI. Breaking Barriers with R&D starts now. Breaking Barriers is brought to you by the next generation of weed control, Liberty Ultra Herbicide from BASF. Learn more about the best Liberty yet at liberty-ultra.us.
Well, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Dowdy, it's always my pleasure. I mean, you were so serious looking just a minute ago, and then you finally livened up, had a smile. I know what's going on in Virginia. The snow and the ice is gone. We're going to be in the 60s today, and you know what that means. Farmers are going to be thinking. They're going to be thinking about planting. But we got 1.5 inches of rain this past weekend, Sunday, and so that's keeping guys out of the field. But they're starting to get that itch until next week when it gets cold again. That itch will go away. But
yeah, David, we got about between 1.5 inches, just depending on where you're at, and we needed it. It's awful dry. Cover crops are being burned down. That does not mean a fire. As you well know, I've had producers send a fire and as B-roll in the background when you say that. So you got to be a little more clear. Chemically burned down, and we're getting ready. Hopefully the planter's going to be here this week. I've been saying that for a couple weeks, and John Deere said the shipper would not ship it due to it being over width. So they had to get a different shipper to ship the planter here. So it's going to be like hurry up and wait, same thing. The weather's, I mean, it's supposed to be 77, 78 today. It was 75 yesterday. Soil temps over 56. It's 56 to 58 degrees, just depending on where you are. It's warm enough to plant. We could have planted. Well, we did have a cold spell, but we could have planted 1st of January from a soil temp perspective and got corn up. Now, it would have had a bad day a couple of days simply because we had some weather in the 20s in January, which really does not happen that often, but we did have it. And we're getting ready. I mean, it's right around the corner. There's nothing that says plant me, I'll make you money.
yeah.
There's nothing there at all that says, hey, this is the year to break the 10-year funk and let's go make some money where there's some opportunity. Hopefully somebody's listening, like Rollins or Donald Trump today, and they'll say, let's find out more about the E15 initiative, or let's create some domestic demand. We got to do something to get these markets up. And it's not necessarily, growers don't like a handout, but we're at the point we're going to take whatever we can get simply to survive. It's still the same mode, but ready for the planter to get here, ready to get going, put some seed out, hopefully in good conditions. Just need a planter to get here so I can do my thing and get it ready.
Oh, you mean Randy ready? If I think, yeah, ready. Well, the planter getting there, it needs to hurry up and get there, because next week you're going to be in San Antonio at the Total Acre Grower Clinic and then the Commodity Classic right after that. So you will have punched out next week as if nothing was going on. And then when you get back, I know, you're going to be ready to rock and roll as long as weather permits. And you talked about nothing really is exciting about the markets. All winter long, I've been attending and going to events. I was, up in Madison with Pioneer. I was in Moline with Nutrien. But a couple weeks ago, I was with Matt Bennett's group in Nashville. And that was the only group that I've participated in where the whole audience was excited. And they're trying to figure out why in the world. Half the group was buyers. They were either running on the rail, they were either local grain elevators, they were end users like animal industry, ethanol folks, and then the other half of the group was farmers. And that group was excited. Now, from a standpoint, the buyers, clearly they're excited because crops are relatively inexpensive, but the relationships with the grower to the end user And I think sometimes we as a grower forget that we're not the customer. Somebody else is a customer. We got to deliver a grain. So that connection was there, and I saw excitement there. Now, growers are excited to get started, but there's just no enthusiasm because of prices the way they are. And that's just farming. Dowdy, I've been in this long time. This isn't the first time we've had this. But what I share with growers, the difference between now and the 80s, when things were really bad, was interest rates a little cheaper than they were in the 80s. But we as globally are not the leading producers anymore. Brazil has taken over that realm. So that's where the little bit unknown is, in my opinion. But I'm pumped up about it. 2026. Just don't look at budgets right now. Just hope. Isn't that the strategy some people have? Hope.
Yeah, hope's a strategy, but it ain't a good one. Hope in Jesus is a good one. That's about the only hope we can, bank on for sure. But I will tell you, David, one of the things that I'm concerned about is I bet I've talked to 15 different farmers down here in South Georgia, and every one of them says there's a seed shortage. Everyone says they can't get their desired seed. And I don't know if the companies are just playing that card and it's BS or if it's legitimate. But shortage of seeds, can't get commitments that they're going to get varieties that they're used to planting or want to plant. And it's across brands. It's not just one brand and one company. Have you heard any of that garbage that there is a real seed shortage of corn in whatsoever? Have you heard that?
I haven't spent time and talked to any of the seed guys that I know upstream, but think about it. If we had a average seed production year, and if the cotton acres are going to drop like some say that they might, then there would be a bigger demand for corn. But nobody has outright said, "Hey, Dave, we're just not going to have the hybrids." There are certain hybrids that are tighter to get. I've been trying to get as much seed in now as I can, and I've got probably half my Pioneer seed, and I don't have any of the other stuff, but they assure me that a large portion of it's in the warehouse. And you know me, I'm wanting to get the seed in, and we pull samples off, and I got to put the little labels on for Sodak, and they'll make it to Brookings, South Dakota this week, probably this afternoon. They'll get shipped. But just to
David, we know you're gonna get corn if anybody gets it. You're the king. You're gonna get corn if nobody else gets it. Period. But we lowly people that are at everybody else's beck and call and mercy. David, they're telling growers that grow corn historically that they can't get their varieties. And this ain't a matter of they rolling out of cotton into something different, and now they gonna plant 1,000 acres of corn, and they ain't planted any in the last 5 years. I mean, these are guys that have been planting some corn to some degree for a long period of time as a part of their rotation, and they're saying they can't get varieties, and they can give them corn, but not the best of the best or the best of what the trials say they are. And that, I mean, I've called 2 or 3 suppliers and they say we can't get it.
Yeah. Well,
so that's frustrating.
You're going to make me make some phone calls, and then I can get an update later on the next podcast. But right now, I haven't heard of that message yet.
Well, we're at the point of planting.
Yeah.
I can assure you, they're telling us at the point of planting, we can't get the seeds you want, the varieties you want.
Well, and so knowing you get the planter ready. If you don't have the seed, now you're at to plant it. And what I would emphasize, and I know you're already thinking about this, even though you didn't get a chance to send the seed off to get tested before you plant, still collect a sample and send off. So if something's not right, at least you have something to back it up. Say, listen, this is what we've dealt with, and it's going to pass whatever is on the tag. It's just all those other things that we look for. But you're not like planting in Michigan right now, so you're not worried about the cold weather. You got South Georgia. You just said it was 70s, could be 80s. So 56, 58 degree temps. Well, Dowdy, we can talk about that, but we got a guest, and I kind of alluded to it last podcast. David Simpson, my local crop insurance guy, and with Simpson Insurance, I felt like because of the budgets the way they are, growers need to be really fine tuning their crop insurance because, we're just at such a high risk. And I asked David to be part of it. He's going to have a big meeting. I think it's tomorrow. So at I'll let him explain where it's going to be at, but they probably don't have enough food for everybody in the audience to attend. But I'm grateful to introduce David Simpson with their crop insurance. And David, welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D. And talk a little bit, because Dowdy asked me, who's your underwriter? And let's talk a little bit about some crop insurance.
All right. I appreciate y'all letting me come on. But the biggest changes for 2026, I can't even keep up with what year it is, but 2026, we've got increased subsidies. So your premium's probably going to be down about 15% so far with the quotes we've run. But the biggest change is SCO. This program has been out for a while, and it's a great program. But we've always been tied to FSA. If you were in ARC, you couldn't get SCO. So there was a problem. But the big, beautiful bill took care of that problem. And now you can get SCO on all your corn and all your soybeans. So that's the first thing I'm going to recommend doing this year. Another change.
Right. Let's make it clear what SCO is, Mr. David.
Oh,
there's going to be some people out there that don't know what that means. So
it's
you don't mind.
It's supplemental crop insurance. It's if you take regular 75% MPCI, which is normal insurance, the SCO goes on top of the 75% and takes you to 86%. That's for 2026. In 2027, SCO will go to 90%. But for this year, we're stuck at 86%.
So if you buy 85, will that take you to 96?
No, it stops at 86%. So if you went 85, you wouldn't be buying much SCO. We can't afford 85% in Virginia. The premiums are so high. So we're a lot at 75 and 80% on corn.
So if you buy the two, say you buy 75 and 11, how does those dollars work out versus just buying 85%? Are you spending the same money?
Well,
how does that work?
In Virginia, 80% runs us about $25. And if we go to 85%, we might pay as much as $50 for just 5%. Well, SCO, you can spend $5 and get that extra 11 or 6% if you're at 80%. So it's cheaper. But that is a good point, Randy, because the higher your level, the more you're going to get up front when we work your claim in October, November. The SCO will pay you at the end of the year. Actually, it pays next June. So you won't get that SCO payment until middle of June in 27. It's like buying a disaster payment. So you might get an extra $50 for $5 an acre. That's kind of how I put it. It's like buying disaster.
Now, can you buy wind and hail on top of this, Mr. David? And,
oh, yeah.
And down here, we got hurricanes. So can we buy the hurricane coverage and all that to go on top of all this?
All right, let's back up a second. So we go SCO to 86%. And then there's another option called ECO, which takes you to 95%. This is a great option if you have high APH yields. You can put your coverage on up there. I wish we had a better price to lock in. ECO would be a no-brainer. However, if you take ECO, you cannot have hurricane insurance. You can't have hurricane and ECO on the same crop. So I'm contemplating what I'm going to show people their options and let them decide. I hate to give up the hurricane and then first year we do, we get one. But there's options out there. You may want to do ECO on corn. Go to 95%, get yourself up there $700-800 coverage, and then do hurricane on soybeans. And I know hurricanes don't affect soybeans like they will corn, but remember, hurricane pays if it hits your county. It doesn't pay according to the damage. It pays if it triggers your county. So anyway, that's an option that we're going to be looking at.
And what is ECO real quick, David? What is that?
ECO is enhanced crop coverage. We got all these acronyms, but it's enhanced because you're going from 86 to 95% now. So it puts you way on up there. If we had 550, that would really be interesting. You could lock in $1,000 coverage. But again, ECO pays next June, and it's based on what we use your APH to establish the coverage, but it's paid based on what the area yields, the same as SCO. It's based on coverage on your APH, but it's based on your area's production. So we have to wait till June to see what the production is. But they're both good products.
So you're telling me that I could have a 300 bushel farm average?
Yep.
And my neighbors, the area average is 220.
Yep.
It's going to trigger a payment off my APH.
That's right. That's right. We're going to use that yields. We're going to use your APH for the coverage and use your yields. I mean, use your yields for the coverage and use your area producers for production. Yeah.
Well, heck, David, that's a no-brainer for you, man. Filth. I mean, your yields are so high dang high. Yeah.
Don't let him fool you. He's got APH that's he produces good on a few acres.
There's always somebody to humble you, you know. So I got something to humble me.
Yeah, but another point is irrigated uses irrigated production from the area, where non-irrigated uses you can't. It's not like you can take your irrigated APH and get paid based on non-irrigated production.
So that would make sense. My practice, it would stay the same.
Yeah,
but that's interesting. Good deal.
So David, if there's a disaster, let's just say we have like a 2012 where it's just burnt slam up, or like 2024, which, you know, there was a lot of payment out then. We'll get our normal payments the end of the year, but the SCO and ECO come in next year.
That's right.
So both of them. So that extra 11 plus 5, that extra 15 or 16% is due in June. So we just got to tell all their vendors, we'll just pay it. We'll get squared away in June, Dowdy. We just tell them to wait. Don't charge me interest because the government's not paying me interest.
Well, that's one thing to think about. You guys have better cash flow than we did 30 years ago. But if your lender says, I want more upfront money, there's a private option where you can just buy an extra $100 coverage to add to your regular coverage, but it's pricey. You're talking an extra $10, $20 an acre to buy extra dollar a bushel on your crop. What we need, Randy alluded to this a minute ago, is we do need a 2012. If we have a 200 bushel crop and corn's back to $4, that's break even. But if we have a 2012 and make 60 bushels and corn goes to $5.50, your crop insurance, if you have these options, you could come up with $850 on a 50 bushel crop, and then not have to haul it and dry it and all that extra stuff. And that would help for next year. Then next year, your ECO would lock in not only your 95% APH, but lock in a 550 a bushel. That's exciting then. We've got something then. So.
In fields where weeds don't back down, farmers count on Liberty Ultra Herbicide by BASF. The Liberty Lock formulation delivers stronger coverage, improved uptake, and 20% better weed control. Clayton Anderson in North Loop, Nebraska can tell you the same.
Every post-pass we go in on soybeans, we spray Liberty on anything that we can, and it does everything that we need it to do.
That's Liberty Ultra Herbicide. Steady, trusted dependability. Hear more Ultramonials at libertyultramonials.com. Always read and follow label directions.
Well, Dave, there's nothing exciting about me wanting to plant a crop and hoping for a drought.
Well, no, it's not. Y'all want 200 bushels, but I tell people the fatter the cow, the less she's worth. So we keep adding and producing, but droughts come and go, but we haven't had a real bad one, like you said, since 12. And that's probably what the country needs, is a little bump, little weather scare somewhere.
Well, we need it in South America. We need a complete drought and disaster in South America.
That would be best. That would be best. Yep.
Well, you've done a good job me buying hurricane insurance, and I ain't had a hurricane yet since neither, too. So, now this will be the one.
You forget a couple of years ago, we added the ECO on corn in 24 and took off the hurricane. You hit the nail on the head that year. You did real well. So
that's because my crop insurance advisor told me the right things to do. So, but I was down in Williamston, North Carolina last week. I gave a presentation to Benchmark Irrigation. And there was, we talked a little bit about crop insurance, and there was a grower there that said, man, we've had 2 out of 3 years we've had hurricanes. So they've claimed on it. So in events where areas that do see a higher risk of hurricanes, and Dowdy's one of them, is there a preferred one to look at? ECO, SCO with hurricane coverage?
Well, that's what I was saying about soybeans. If we wanted to put SCO and ECO on corn, you could go back to your beans and put SCO and then put hurricane on top of the SCO. That would still give you $70 payment on hurricane. But
I was thinking more in reference to corn. Do you think if you were in a more of a risk, do you think one's better than the other, or are you going to stick with adding the ECO and SCO together?
I'm going to give y'all your options. Talked with a guy on the Eastern Shore yesterday, which is hurricane prone, and he wants to drop the hurricane and add ECO. So everybody's different, but I am going to remind them tomorrow at the meeting about 2024 when Debbie and Helene went right through Georgia and tore it up. And last year we actually had a Cat 5 just sitting on the East Coast, but it never came ashore. That would have really done some damage. So the very year we give up hurricane is the year we get. Hurricane is 1 in 20. ECO will probably pay 1 in 2 every other year. SEO will probably pay every 3 or 4 years. So,
and what does SEO cost?
If we have a
$5?
Yeah, it's around $5 to add SEO and about 6 or 7 for ECO. But that'll give you another 120, 40 bushel coverage, depending on your APH. The higher your APH, the better ECO looks. The lower APHs, they may have to look to a private product to gain that extra $100 coverage that they need. We all agree that you can't plant corn for $600, and that's a lot of people are sitting there at $600. So,
and that is definitely a better option than buying 85% when you're just looking at sheer economics.
Yeah, the 85 is just expensive. It explodes. It doubles the premium. So now you have to keep in mind, I don't know what Georgia's sales closing date. North Carolina is February 28th. Here in Virginia, Maryland, we're at March 15th. So you need to be in touch with your agent and discuss these options before these deadlines.
Good deal.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things, Dave, there's a lot of growers that are that watch this podcast, and they are in the Midwest, and wind damage, wind and hail is really big. It's not really as big in my part of the world, particularly the hail side. Have you ever run with any wind and hail coverage?
You can add private hail and wind to any crop as long as you have it insured with the same insurance provider. Now, that's another good question I'm going to bring up to my irrigated producers. If we're going to add SCO and you've had your corn at 50% irrigated, well, we're going to spend the same premium if we add SCO. So I'm going to recommend moving your irrigated level up to 65, 70%, and then add SCO on top of that. And the reason is what you just said. If we had a ratio, which we don't get in Virginia, but you could get a tornado and lay that irrigated corn down, we need more upfront money on the irrigated. If we're going to buy SCO, we might as well shift our coverage a little bit to more upfront, I think. So that's a thought.
What's your thoughts on enterprise versus single?
That's a great question. Enterprise is a third of the premium. So I really push enterprise. Let's buy 80% enterprise and get as much upfront coverage as we can. And I do have some soybean producers that deer are a problem in Virginia, and they want to be optional. With SCO, it's going to allow them to go 65, 70% optional, and then put the 86% blanket on top of their whole farm basis. So I think I'll let some of them go back to optional on soybeans, but the premium is just crazy. You'll go from $8 enterprise beans to $17, $18 to separate them. So it's a big deal. Corn will go from $20 to $60 enterprise versus optional. So we really push enterprise or recommend enterprise.
Man,
for your money.
Because of where I'm at, I've always bought just optional, just simply because of the fact I've had 60 miles difference between where I farm, and I just can't afford. And I understand there's counties and states and there's different areas that, with insurance that affect different ways. But for me, it helps me sleep at night to know that, some farms don't have as high APH either. Right. So
right.
We kind of take some of those things into account. But we've been buying optional units. You
can do county by county. You can enterprise one county and optional the other counties. You have to look at everything, but your rates may be cheaper than our rates. We're not, we have issues in Virginia.
It's just part of the budget, Mr. David. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to have $60 to $80 an acre in crop insurance.
You get what you pay for. And that is on one of my slides tomorrow. If you want a big check, you spend big premium. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Well, so you can, enterprise different counties, but
that's right.
Can you enterprise corn and then option beans in the same county though?
Right. Each crop is different.
Yeah. For that one guy that's fighting with deer. I mean, I know, Dowdy deals with deer except in Michigan where he puts a fence around them or maybe keeps them in. I don't know, one or the other. But so we all have some kind of wildlife pressure. And, I don't deal with hogs, thank goodness. I think Randy might have hogs too, but the crop insurance is key. We've been doing it for a long time, and it's one of those things you don't want to have to claim, but we claim so many times, and it just covers their premiums and gives us that blanket of protection. Because you mentioned $600 to raise corn. That's it's easy higher than that, Mr. Dave.
Yeah.
We're getting into the $800 range plus on, and then when you get in irrigated, it's even higher than that.
Well, you're also building up a great APH the more you spend on corn. So that's your difference. I have some people that say 500 will cover it. Well, they don't have the rent, and they're not putting a lot of stuff down, but their APH shows it too. So
yeah. So who backs you on that? I know it's Simpson Insurance. Randy asked me that, and I didn't have a good answer.
Well, the main company we use is RCIS, which is they're based out of Anoka, Michigan, I think. I don't know, but anyway, I'm gonna meet them this evening, so I better. But they're our main company. We have a couple of companies, but I get used to the paperwork of one company, and I like to stick with what I'm used to. And they've been good. They've worked things out, and we've had a good relationship. So,
well, I'm gonna bring the smelling salts to all this. All this insurance is great, and I've had a bad taste in my mouth with a couple of companies that I dealt with. My most recent, I felt like that I had an advocate, but not all adjusters are created equal either.
that's true.
And I don't know if it's like anything, if there's gray areas or if it's black and white or if there's interpretation. I don't know how it works, but when an agent tells you something and then an adjuster tells you something and they're similar, and then you proceed as they tell you, and then at the end they move the goalpost on you, that's frustrating. So obviously the agent and there's supposed to be I guess an arm's length distance between the agent and the adjusters. But talk to us about adjusters, and how does a guy go about finding a good insurance company? Just say a guy is not feeling like he's real happy with, he always pays premiums, but he never has an opportunity. There's always a loophole as why it never pays. And they just got a bad taste in their mouth about crop insurance. What's a better way for somebody to go about skinning this cat to find a good guy that's going to have good support? Nobody wants to go to federal prison. We don't want to go to jail for doing crop insurance fraud.
Nope.
But if a guy's unhappy with their agent, what should they be doing if they feel like they bought premiums and they paid for coverage and they just always seem to be excluded? Because I know a guy in Michigan today. He'll tell you straight up, I paid premiums for years, and there's always a reason why they don't pay. Always. And I'm just saying, if he's discouraged, what should a guy consider going forward?
Well, the first thing I would do is make sure my agent is advising me correctly on all my options. You'd be surprised, when I first started 30 some years ago, I was running into people's that their APH hadn't been updated in years, and they were on county yields instead of APH. There's not a lot of that anymore. Most people know what they're doing, but you do have to have an agent that keeps up with this stuff. And that's all we do is crop insurance. So that makes it, you don't really want to buy crop insurance from a car or homeowner's insurance person. But anyway, then the second thing is another reason I like my RCIS is they have done a good job finding good adjusters, young adjusters. We've been right fortunate. 5 years ago, we couldn't find them. Now we got a bunch of girls coming to us out of college wanting work. So they're hiring and keeping them up. And if I have any issues, I let the company know, and they'll replace the adjuster with someone that's up to speed. So that they're a good company to work with. So you need to find an agent that knows what they're doing, and then you need to find a company that you can work with. So
how do you know that, Mr. David, until the comes down to the nut cutting and you realize the hard way that agent didn't know what he was doing?
I think, Randy, you could probably feel them out in about 5 minutes whether they know what they're talking about.
I hear you.
You know, first thing, you know, I've had meetings and talk about enterprise saving premium, and the people, I tell everybody to come to my meetings, whether you're with me or somebody else, and they'll go back to their agent, and the agent says, well, I've never heard of that. So that tells you a lot right there. You know, that if they don't know about enterprise versus optional, they probably don't know much about SEO and ECO and private products as well. So that you can feel them out real quick, I think.
So if you had a couple questions somebody could ask an agent, just to, I don't want to say trick them up, but just to make sure they're knowledgeable. You just mentioned enterprise and SEO and ECO. Anything else that would come to mind?
Well, I didn't think it was possible, but you could double check and make sure they're updating your yields every year. I can't imagine not doing that, but if you hadn't got a yield request from your 25 production, then they're getting behind. So they should be getting your yields updated every year. So
all right.
That's big.
One question I have, because of the sheer cost of production nowadays, have they changed the audit visions? If you have a big claim, has that changed any?
That was one thing I was disappointed in the new big beautiful bill. They left the audit at 250,000. It's either 200 or 250, and that's a little tight, because with we can hit that mark pretty quick. But they have backed off of. It's not a real strenuous audit. They don't check sometimes you're on the non-exempt or exempt list, I should say, and you don't have to go through it. But the biggest thing with that audit is they look at last year's production. If that looks, if you can prove your total bushels that you turned in, that's the biggest thing through an audit. So it's not a big deal, but yes, it needs to be moved up to 500,000, because we hit 200 pretty regularly, easily. And that's in the last few years, not counting the 2012. So.
Yeah, there's a lot more risk there. And
yeah.
So yeah. So for this will get aired after your meeting. So it's okay to talk about, because nobody's going to show up, Dave. Tell us a little bit about what you do at your meeting and where it's located at, just so people for next year might say, oh, I want to find out.
Well, if you're in Maryland or North Carolina, this meeting is in Colonial Heights, Virginia, at a tractor museum. I used to have a half a dozen meetings scattered across the state of Virginia. And I kind of got tired of going out at night and driving at night, and the restaurants were closing. And anyway, I stumbled across this tractor museum that had a 300 meeting room in it. I said, this is what I've been looking for. So this meeting will be tomorrow at the Tractor Museum in Colonial Heights, Virginia. And all you got to do is get on 95 and go right on up the road, and you can be there. The museum opens at 9. We'll have a fried chicken barbecue lunch at 11:30, and I'll talk from 12:30 to 1:15. And I try to get them out of there by 2 so they can go by Agri Supply on their way home, which is right down 95. So they make it worthwhile. And we'll have other vendors there, so you could get more information from John Deere and fertilizer. Farm Credit will be there, and maybe FSA will have a booth. So we try to put as much info right there as we can. So
you don't have a picture in your presentation of me planting that one row of corn, do you?
that was last year. I was going to start the meeting off with how to get 400 bushel corn, and David Hula was replanting one row at a time on his wife's little tractor, and that's how I was going to start the meeting last year. And we got snowed out last year, so well, I took it off, Dave. I took it off. You're not going to be on there.
That's good. Yeah, I'm thinking about me, but not that way. Yeah. Well, Dave, man, I sure do appreciate you being part of the podcast today. And the big thing is, you represent Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina very well. Growers definitely need to talk to their local agent and try to get the nuts and bolts of the programs that fit best for them. And, you just present me with options, and it's up to me to pick the options that seem to fit best for myself or at Rimwood Farms. But I think with the risk that growers have, I mean, it's easy to try to shave not easy. Growers are trying to figure out how to cut dollars in their budget. Dowdy, this is one thing you can't afford to cut out, because, if you lose a crop and then you still got to service debt, how are you going to service debt when you don't have any grain to sell or a reduced amount? So you mentioned it, Dowdy, that you got to be able to sleep at night. I sleep very well at night knowing that I have coverage to service some debt. So Dave, it was a great pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks, y'all, for having me.
Thank you, Mr. David. I want you to settle a dispute. I was in Pennsylvania last week, and the guy had me speak, and his two kids were there, and one of those kids had told his daddy that he thought David Hula was a better farmer than Randy Dowdy was. So we're going to put it on your plate. Do you think Randy or David's the better farmer?
Well, I have to say David, Randy, because he's a client. That was an easy one.
I can't win for losing.
But I would tell you again to contact your agent before sales closing and make sure they give you all these options. So now's the time to look.
Appreciate your time, man, your wealth of knowledge, and it sounds like you'd be a fun guy to be around. So nice meeting you, Mr. David. If you ever need anybody up there to help answer some agronomy questions, that's what you need to do, is make this not just about, if you want to take this to the next level, no pun intended, maybe now you make it an agronomy session so they can produce more bushels in the whole process. Some of what it might take to make bushels.
4 years ago, I had that lined up. I had a guy named David Hula coming to talk, and people were coming left and right to hear that. And he never showed up. He sent a representative.
Well, you let me know and I'll show up. Then maybe I can be the guy that's the better farmer, because I did your favor.
All right, guys.
All right, take care. Thank you, Mr. David. Yeah. David, as always, man, it's been my good pleasure to be with you. We had a little fun this morning. Nice meeting a good personality from your area. He sounded like he'd be a lot of fun. And there was a lot of good knowledge there today for people to think about and consider. I guarantee you some of those acronyms they probably not heard of. So maybe they have, but I hadn't. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Dowdy, it's always good to be part of the Breaking Barriers podcast. And we've got to thank all our sponsors that help facilitate this. I know BASF has been a big premier sponsor, and Dowdy, may God bless the seeds you sow, whether it's, it won't be next week, but it's going to be shortly thereafter.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.